Rorschach, issue 8, Tom King, Jorge Fornes. This is the real part of the show. The rest of it's all been a prelude to the Rorschach conversation.
And I'm watching the clock guy, and I'm so hungry. I'll try to make this brief as much as I can.
It's not happening. I'll tell you right now, it's not happening.
Yeah.
So the structure of this issue is that our investigator is interviewing 3 people, and each page is essentially split into a third. Now, it's not 3 panels. Like each page has different layouts of the panels within each third, but they also have a color tint after the first page as well, where the top one, which is red, which is the lawyer, and then the second one, the middle one, is green, which is a psychiatrist, and then the bottom one is blue, which is kind of the handyman kind of helper guy, right?
Yeah, and I like that each of their not costumes, but they're wearing gives that color, right? So in the beginning, the lawyer's wearing like a red shirt, the psychiatrist wearing like a green vest, and the handyman's wearing a Dodgers hat, like a blue. Yeah. So that colors the story as they're telling it. Yeah. Yeah. Whenever it's a great storytelling device.
Whenever it comes back to the interrogation room, we don't have the tints, right? It's just there and plain. Right. What I liked about the layouts in this though a lot is there's a couple of really good ones. I think it's the first time we go back to the interrogation after some of the stories have been told, is we get like I'm trying to find it so I can say it properly. Well, in fact, no, it's actually the third time, I think, or the second time.
No, when he gets across the room.
No, it is the second time, but it was more so much the second page, but it does happen in the first page as well to an extent. Is that the way it's split up is you have like the inspector get up and he walks over to the other person, and it's worth mentioning they have bruises, they've got some blood coming out their mouth. Yeah. There's been some mean interrogation tactics.
Yeah.
Off panel.
Good cop, bad cop, but there's no good cop.
Yeah. But I really liked on the following page when he does punch them, like when he walks back and sits down, like the way it just carries the pacing throughout the page as you're reading it.
Fornes is a master at this, because we've said this. He does something like this in every issue so far.
There's nothing more impressive to me in comic book art and sequential comic book art than making me feel a pace where I can actually feel the beats of the scene play out as if I was watching a movie, where I can feel each step and I can feel the camera move, as it were. Like it's so impressive, and it does it so magically through these layouts. So really good stuff. But yeah, so this is all them being interviewed based on an event that happened before, of course, the assassination attempt, which is the kid in Meyerson asked them all to come out to this farmhouse in the middle of nowhere in the desert. And it's funny because the handyman is the last one on the page, but he was first to actually be there.
He's the first one there.
Because he's the one who helps build the thing that we're going to get to in a minute.
Right.
And we have them tell a story. And I was looking at the layouts, because obviously the way this works is that they're all in like little panels.
Thirds.
In each third, but they're all in little panels, and then the narration telling the story is in just the white background, right, where there's no panel and the empty space.
Yeah.
So they kind of make shapes, and I was kind of looking at them and going, do these like form letters or symbols that I can kind of say or something? Is there some sort of hidden code going on?
It's like they're puzzle pieces.
I feel
it's like Tetris, right? They're all kind of Tetris shapes, and then if you push them together, you get the full. Right? Or there's pieces missing on certain ones.
Yeah, it's super interesting.
So good.
So, yeah, and they're all out there for obviously different reasons, right? So the handyman's there to help build something, which we'll get to in a bit. Psychiatrist there, because this psychiatrist has been seeing Meyerson for a long time, mentions that his father, who was a psychiatrist, was his doctor before him. So that reminded me of the new Rorschach from Doomsday Clock. Yes.
Right? Because that was what's Rorschach's real name?
Kovacs.
Kovacs. It's Walter Kovacs's therapist, right? So that felt like a familiar piece there, and that again can't be by accident. So, once we get to the end, we'll talk about theories. But I have a theory about that.
Yeah, and the lawyer's there to talk about the distribution of Meyerson's money, to update his will. In the event of his death, and it's all basically going back to the kid's hometown and like making sure that's all like maintained.
Specifically the graveyard, the miner's graveyard.
Yeah, because maybe there was so much backstory about that mine and like what happened there. So that's kind of why they're all there, right? And it's them telling their stories about going out there, and they were all paid to go there by Frank Miller, right? That was like that's why he's tracked all these people down.
It's still so crazy to read a book where Frank Miller's the character.
It's so funny.
And he's basically Frank Miller.
What's so funny is that early on he's referenced by one of the characters. They say Mr. Miller sent me this check, and I went, Mr. Miller, who's Mr. Miller? And then it dawned on me who they were talking about. I was like, oh yeah, Frank Miller, because he was in the book of last issue. So they're telling us, and it's very methodical in the way, the way it even inserts some of the panels of the investigator, like asking the questions without the tint into the thirds, is also really good. Like there's just this pacing.
Yeah, I want to talk about that too. Is that as it goes, right? It's like he's piecing their stories together, and the more that we hear their stories, the more it comes together. So there's less of that space in between the panels, and a lot less of the white there. So by the time you get to the page where they're all on the stand looking at the stage, it's a full picture.
Yeah, they're full. They're full panels. Yeah.
Yeah, and you
more specifically, they're full thirds, I guess, to really describe it.
They're full thirds, right? And then as he's trying to piece, he goes, "Okay, that's where the stories line up, where they're all the same." And then as it gets back, and you start to not itemize, you start to isolate each of the other characters. That's where that starts to get the white spaces again, right? Where he's trying to fill in the story until you get to the last couple pages, and there's no more blank, right? We're back in the present. Where he has the information he needs,
Yeah, and obviously a lot of this is like he's asking them, what were Myers and the kid like, and they talk about them. Oh, they didn't seem like they were going to try and assassinate someone. Yeah, it's weird that he's wearing this Rorschach mask, but the kid was sweet. He was always a bit weird, but nothing dangerous, and it all feels like they had this experience which should have been slightly concerning to them, and they don't seem to be. Which is why I think when you get to the end and they have their creepy moment, which it kind of hits because it's kind of a surprise and a twist. Oh, your mic's going, Matt, in the traditional way. Now we have to specify. Now we have to specify because there's two weird things that I'll do. But yeah, so they build this tower and a stage, right? Or maybe the tower's already there. It may just be a tower that's naturally there, but they build a stage like so they can practice the aim, the idea that they're mimicking the distance of the arena, of which this governor presidential debate is going to take place. And these three they're taken up there and they're told to try and hit the target, which we don't see till later is actually a little Watchman button, the smiley face.
Yeah,
right?
The comedian.
So it's a tiny target. Like this is like headshot practice almost because it's such a small target.
And they all talk about how with that gun you could do it, but not at that distance. Like it was almost an impossible task, but the kid never missed. Yeah,
and there's more of that political thing where this is anti-left wing because they talk about how Redford took away the guns that could do this. You weren't allowed to buy them anymore. But these are like old-fashioned rifles. But the kid, who's been working with guns since she was, literally a kid, is so good at this. And like you say, there's that gorgeous 2-page layout where it's the 3 full thirds. But there are those little like sort of indents where it does a square around where they are in the tower and where the target is, which is a really nice thing. And they're telling the story, and this is the thing, because they're kind of intersecting, because they're all on each page, you get this sort of overall picture of them just not being able to do it. And I like the psychiatrist specifically talking about how if you weren't careful, the shell that comes out of the gun when you fire, it's really hot and it could go into your shirt. Like you might get unlucky enough that it might fall into your shirt and it'd be really hot. So I like that detail. But they're trying to hit this target, which is a smiley face, just a pile of sandbags. So you've got the smiley button on it, and then she takes the gun and taking almost no time to aim, gets a direct hit. And in each of the panels, you see for some reason, like I don't know if it was maybe implying it was paint pellets, or if it was just more of a metaphor, but you get the classic blood sliding down the Watchman smiley button. Going throughout the page until it's actually dripped down like the classic image. And it's a really, really great page. The way it's sort of building up, it really feels like this is all practice for something. And they're talking about how they seem like really happy and pleasant and content living in this middle of nowhere. and they all say they leave without incident, and they're all there for a few days each, and they all come home, they pack, get in the car, and fly home. And it's at that point where we actually get a flashback to sort of what happened at the end of the last issue, which is the arrest of Frank Miller, where he does the classic thing where they take off his Rorschach mask and he's yelling, give me it back, give me back my face. Right. Classic stuff. And that's obviously, and it's investigating what he's done, so it's led to these three characters.
Right, so that they gave him a name because he's paid them the money.
Yeah.
Right, that he was acting for Meyerson. There was a piece here that we'd speculated, or you knew that this was in the TV show continuity.
Mm-hmm.
There's a talk about when they're talking about the mask. He goes, "Oh, the cops in the Midwest wear masks all the time."
Yeah.
So I thought that was a little piece of this too.
Yeah, it's all the Redford talk that I think put it in the TV.
Yeah.
Continuity. Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought that was an interesting piece too, because it's when they start talking about the mask with Miller and all of this is that our investigator gets mad because he says doing these visits in person is ridiculous. Accepting that the mask is ridiculous. You went there for a reason. You're telling this part of the story now for a reason. Why do your stories match so well?
Yeah, that's what he says. The stories match so well, and we saw it really match at it did that thing where even when they were all lying in the same guest bedroom, it showed you them in the exact same frame. I mean, the panel layout was different. There was different blocks we were seeing,
right?
But they were all lying. The bed was at the same angle. It was almost like Fornes probably even didn't draw it 3 times. Like he drew obviously he drew the different people, but I can imagine that Fornes, to make sure it was identical, just copied his art of the bed in the room.
Yeah, they're little. Yeah, it's like you're zooming in on the room, but you can tell it's the same room.
Yeah, but it's the exact same framing and layout, just with different panels, sort of like windows looking into it, and then you get to the actual like practicing the shots, and it is exactly the same moments happening, and it's like everything's lining up. And part of me's thinking, is he going off the deep end here? Is he maybe assuming too much because the stories do match up too perfectly? And then when he gets really mad, he punches them all again. He yells at them. What's going on? This was very specific. The stories match so well. Why the emphasis on how happy they were? Why the stage, the range, on her being good shot, all of it matching. You're leading the conversation. It's like it's like something's trying to get through to him. There's a message for him specifically. And he says, "What the hell is going on?" And then you get this page where it's just the 3/3, them in the dark in the interrogation room, and they all have this creepy smile, and it sort of splits it up, and they all say the same thing, but you get it like told like sequentially through the 3 of them, where it says, "Oh, it's you. I've been waiting for you," and it's like they're members of a cult. It's like they've been brainwashed by Meyerson and the kid, and like who knows if anything they've told them actually happened. Did any of it happen as they said it? Is it mostly right up until the shooting range, but then after that there is more to like what convinced them or what converted them or whatever? Because I think you brought up the original psychiatrist with Rorschach. Part of that, especially as we in that issue in the original book where how much it got to him, how much he was starting to question his own sanity. He never converted to Rorschach's way of thinking, but it definitely is not a giant leap to think that Rorschach or a Rorschach could pull that off.
Left an imprint. Yeah, left an imprint on him. And so it's almost as if the spirit of Rorschach isn't actually the spirit, it's this mentality. And Meyerson and Kidd were able to instill that mentality into each 3 of these people. Right, through whatever acts that it were, and that's what bringing up the psychiatrist. That's part of the story. That's giving the investigator the clue, because the spirit of Rorschach wants him to figure this out. And if you look, he's using Rorschach's methods. We saw this time and again in the original story of Rorschach, investigating, which is just punching guys until they tell him what he wants to hear.
This is going to sound insane because, obviously they have the bodies and stuff, but part of me is expecting like a reveal, like it wasn't really Meyerson or the kid who was there on the day itself. Like, I'm starting to get that feeling that they've got some master plan where they want him to get this close and figure certain things out. I mean, is the whole point of this book is to eventually convert our main character into their way of thinking? Is this a whole thing about brainwashing him or about convincing him of like which side he should be on?
Yeah. And that, because he's being paid by Turley, right?
Yeah.
We know he doesn't like Turley from other interactions. And then the thing that he mentions after, he says it's like a cult. If I ask the right question, I get the right answer. The squids are here. And don't forget what the kid's dad, what his whole belief was, is that the squids were mind controlling everybody. So if the squids, who are the squids? Are the squids, have they taken up basically being the opposition? That it's Meyerson and the kid? That's their mission now? Is that we're going to infect people with what we feel is, how they need to be? Is this the idea of a virus, not an actual virus, but like thought as a virus? That once
it's basically taking the idea of propaganda and manipulation, but turning it up because it's a fictional story. You turn it up to 11, and you're literally changing the minds into being brainwashed by it. Which, to a point, one could argue that some of this does happen anyway. That people do get brainwashed by media and things like that. But this is taking it to another step.
Well, it's turning it up.
Yeah.
Right, it's turning it up, and that's why I feel like this is a masterpiece because we've talked and talked and talked. Tom King was in the CIA. He knows the different methods that they use to change the narratives on things, And so I feel like this is him kind of tipping the hand of, this is how this stuff happens. Like, it seems innocuous, right? Lawyer comes to the house. This is what they're doing. Something happened there that led to them, sharing the beliefs of Meyerson and the kid. And we've even seen what the kid has done by, getting the circus strongman to believe that he's reincarnated spirit of Rorschach.
Yeah, no, that already happened. And I think it's important here that these are three very different people. They're all very different backgrounds, very different professions, very different attitudes, and all of them are seemingly converted in a very creepy way by the end of this issue.
Right, and these are supposed to be our heroes. I mean, I shouldn't say heroes. These are, from what we've seen, they were trying to commit an assassination of a political candidate. But we've seen that political candidate isn't a good person, So, for lack of a better term, these are our, heroes, and yet their methods seem to be no different than Turley's, right? The way that Turley talks about, or in that second or third issue, the whole idea of a real American and whatnot. Just the idea that this from now the Rorschach perspective, what does that mean? What is that other?
I mean, because you go back to the squids, the squids just a metaphor for the opposition, or is it actually a complete, alien? Because this is the thing, because this world believes that an actual squid did kill all these people, it also makes complete sense they would actually believe the squids are coming, and the squids are here and are manipulating people.
But we know where that came from Veet, and that was a genetically engineered thing.
Yeah, but these characters don't know that, which is
So what? But what does that mean with for their purpose? Because we know it's all a sham built by Veet, but how Belief was able to go in and change these people, for some for the better, maybe some for the worse, and don't forget she never missed, but she somehow missed Turley.
Well, that's the thing. That's what tells me something's not right about the assassination attempt, because she hit every single time, and it's like the kid and Meyerson want this inspector to know that she never misses. So why did she miss on that day?
Right.
And okay, and maybe even I'll accept that. Okay, maybe there won't be some twist where they're actually not dead, and it was them that day. They did die, but the whole point of like him getting to this realization that she intentionally missed meant that the real,
so they could uncover whatever.
Well, not necessarily uncover that. What I'm trying to say is they intentionally missed because the plan wasn't to assassinate this guy. The plan was to turn our main character into something, or have him
That's what I mean. The uncovering as he goes along this path, that they manipulated the events that lead to him getting here.
But what I'm really saying is, though, it may not be it may not be him uncovering something. It may be him being manipulated into something. It may be him being put into a position where he'll do something that they want him to do, whatever that goal is. And maybe there'll be a bit of a swerve that we can't predict as to what their real intentions actually are. I mean, if it turns out that the assassination of Turley is nothing but a part of a plan to actually initiate something else, then what actually is the ultimate goal?
Which that is totally Veidt, though, right? Like, that was his plan.
Yeah,
his plan was all these steps. Like, what do you mean I'm gonna stop it? It happened 20 minutes ago.
Yeah, I'd go even further and just say it's very Watchmen. Like, it's just the whole idea of Watchmen is that this character, we're trying to put all these pieces together the whole time, much like our main character, but the idea being that he's being played, or whatever's really going on, we're not even touching at yet, because it's the whole point is that this is a misdirection, that this is putting him in a place where he'll do the right thing for, in the eyes of the person who set it all up.
Right. And we're 2/3. This is 12 issues, right?
Yeah, 12 issues.
So we're 2/3 of the way through with this now. So this would be where the third act starts. And yeah, man, this is the type of stuff that I love from King. This is my favorite book of his thus far, through 8. And I loved Mr. Miracle. I mean, it took me a minute to get into it. That first issue kind of broke my brain. I don't know if I liked it. I'm loving Strange Adventures, but like what this is doing, just with the way that it's telling stories, and what the story that's being told, and how that relates to the real world, and just the whole idea of the meta, everything here too, because we don't know actually what happened in that farmhouse. We know what they're telling us and how it lines up perfectly, but are we, they want him to believe that she never missed, but we don't know that, so
no. I'm
Yeah.
inclined to believe that it's true, though. I'm inclined to believe that part is true.
Right, because of what we've heard from her so far, that she never misses, right? But still, it's this whole point of their stories line up perfectly. They wanted me to get to a point. I guess were leading me along, But
I think the reason why I believe it, and I believe most of what they actually say, there's more they're not saying, but I believe most of what they're saying in the story purely because it's like, no, this is going to work because it's still the truth. Even though there's extra parts to it and there's manipulation and they're brainwashed, I think the point is that this part's still going to work because she really doesn't miss. They really saw her not miss, and regardless of anything else, that detail is true because that's what affects everything. So I'm inclined to think my gut instinct says that's real.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I don't know who to trust, and I think that's the point too. I'm just as lost as our main character in this, and I'm not frustrated because I'm enjoying everything. Also, I want to go back and read this in the way where you just read all the red story and then all the green, then all the blue.
Sure.
Because I read this like a regular comic, page by page, and again, it reminds me of the Fearful Symmetry issue of Watchmen that could be, that you can read backwards and forwards.
Yeah, I think it's intended to be read traditionally first, at least. Yep. But yeah, there's probably some merit in doing it that way.
So, yeah, man, King and Fornes, this is one of my favorite teams. I remember when this book was announced, I was not stoked because I was Rorschached out. Just certain types of people belong to that character.
And I think at the time you immediately assumed, they're somehow bringing Rorschach back, and that's not what this is. This is not
at all. And I was a little on the outs with King on top of it too, right? Like
because it's right around Heroes in Crisis. Yeah,
it was still fresh, and but no, man, this is this type of stuff I feel that he's built for.
Yeah,
these standalone stories.
Because I wasn't sure about anything, but I think I remember saying, well, we don't know it's actually Rorschach. It could be someone else wearing the mask. It could be a number of things. Because especially since Watchmen, it was like, oh, how's Rorschach back? Oh, it's someone else wearing the mask.
Right.
So it was like, okay, so let's see how this works. And it's just been one of the best things that's been coming out from DC in the last
easily
8 months, I guess, now, because it's issue 8. So what are you rating Rorschach? And we did talk about the art, we talked about the pals, talked about the layouts, all that stuff.
This is a 9.5.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just gonna go to flat 9. We're going to flat 9.
Yeah.
Other issues have wowed me that little bit more, so I'll just go to flat 9. But
yeah, fair.
I don't know, I think the lowest rating I've given this book is maybe an 8.5, and that was like the low point of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Was an 8.5.
This book has been killing. I look forward to it. It's the last thing I read every time it's up, just because I want to save it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because. Yeah. But yeah, no, it's very, very good.